Hello, everyone. It's SharRon. I hope you can join me this evening. I will wait for a couple of seconds while I share it on my page, but I hope you can join me tonight as I talk about something that I believe affects all of us, and that is making sure we are in good relationships. So I hope you can join me this evening. I'm going to share it to the Dare to Soar Higher group, and I hope that you can join me this evening. If I will wear my glasses, I can see so much better. Hey, Debbie, thank you so much for joining me, and Andy. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Let me know where you're from. Hey, Latoya, thanks so much for joining me, and Keith. If you will take a moment and you can share, I really, really appreciate it. First, I want to invite you to attend the 4 Levels of Relationship class tomorrow, which is a master class where you can take out of the comfort of your own home. But before I do that, I want you to take out a pencil and pen or iPad, showing my age, because I want to give you 3 signs. Hey, Avis, thanks so much for joining me. That you are in a bad relationship. 3 signs that you are in a bad relationship. The first sign that I want you to write down, hey, Kathy. Hey, oh, Latoya from Gary, Indiana. Fantastic. The first sign I want you to write down is that you know that you are in an unhealthy relationship when you start losing, first word, morale. When you start losing morale. Now, morale is that feeling where you feel confident. It's when you have high self-esteem. It's when you start feeling good about yourself. But oftentimes, if we are in a toxic relationship with our loved one, or in a toxic relationship at work, when somebody is hypercritical, when they are always telling us that we're not good enough, we're too fat, we're too ugly, we're too old, people just pick. What happens is you start feeling badly about yourself. So we always got to be mindful that if we are in work environments or in relationships with our friends, our parents, our lovers, our partners, and they're always are highlighting our flaws or highlighting our failures, we can function in that environment and we start feeling badly about ourselves. And one of the things that you never want to do is to start feeling badly about yourself. Now, I would love to say that this doesn't happen, but that's not true. I know from my own experience, I have been in relationships where I let people just pick me apart, and my nose was too big, I was too fat, I was too old, I was too ugly. And let me tell you, it just really chipped away at my self-esteem. And it's the same when I went to corporate America when I was in my early 20s, because, you know, it was microaggressions, always second guessing me and always second guessing my value, but also my integrity and also my intelligence. If that happens, that's a bad relationship. Never trade or never allow yourself to take dollars for your degradation. It's not worth that. So we want to make sure when we're looking at our lives, hey, Central and Debbie, ask yourself, are you allowing yourself to be degraded for dollars? Because if you are, that's an opportunity, and that is a sign that you are in a bad relationship. I don't care if it's a toxic work relationship. I don't care if it's a love relationship. If someone is always pulling you apart, you better leave, because when they start making you feel badly about yourself, you will start inculcating that negativity. And as a result, you'll start looking at yourself in the mirror, and then you'll start seeing every flaw about you, and you will start doubting who you are. You'll start doubting your work, and you will start doubting your worth. And both of those are things that you should never doubt. I want you to remember this. People in your life should build you and bolster you. They should not bury you or butcher you. So if you have someone butchering you because they're always are saying something and highlighting what you are not, I want you to ask yourself, is that a healthy relationship? And so many women, I see so many women who are highly degreed, very successful, staying in relationships when they're getting torn down little by little by little by little, that one day they wake up and they don't even know who they are anymore. So I want you to think about, is the relationship building you and bolstering you, or is the relationship butchering you? If it's butchering you, it's time to go. Because if not, it's okay if somebody else doesn't like you, but you should not be around people who don't like you, because after a while you stop liking yourself. So that's the first thing. If you start losing your morale, that's your confidence, your self-esteem, your mojo, that's when you need to leave. The second sign that you're in a bad relationship, thank you, Terrell. Hey, Avis and Stella. The second M for you to consider when it's time to leave a relationship is when you start losing momentum. Momentum is when you are moving in a good direction. You have a nice rhythm, you have a nice cadence to your life. But sometimes we get in these relationships, and guess what? We stop doing what we're doing. Hey, Jordan and Jackie, just think you're working out, you fall in love, you stop going to the gym. You're starting a business, you fall in love, you stop doing your business, you drop out of school. I see so many people just give up their goals because they have a bad boss or they have a bad relationship or have a bad friendship, and they abandon their purpose, they abandon their calling just because they're losing their mojo. Here's the challenge. Some people are just distractions and detractors and disruptors. And it's okay if they jack up their life, but then you don't want somebody to jack up yours. When you start losing momentum, what happens is you start falling, and then you start falling into mediocrity. And mediocrity makes us miserable. We know when we're not performing. We know that when we're not living up to our own high expectations. So I want you to think about your life and think about your connections. If you're surrounded by people who are always trying to reduce you to their comfort zone, or reduce who you are to so that you can fit into their reality, or reduce you based on their ability, I think you're in a bad relationship. Hey, Debbie and Danielle. So we got to kind of think about, are my connections where I spend my time in, are those people replenishing me and rejuvenate me and restore me and renew me? Those are relationships we need to be around. But if somebody's reducing you, or somebody is trying to reject you or ridicule you, you have to go. Now, I want to say that we all know that. But can I tell you how many relationships I see people stay in and they are losing momentum? They had all these dreams and they had all these goals, but sometimes they just abandon just to be in love. If someone wants you to give up your life, that's not love. That's a lie. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Because if somebody loves you, they want you to be all that you have, all that you feel that you have been created to do. They want you to live your purpose. And so I want you to think about your life. And hey, Miss Blessings, and ask yourself, are you losing momentum in your work relationship where there's a glass ceiling that you keep knocking up the glass ceiling? Maybe it's time to go. Are you in a relationship with a lover, a spouse that continues to demote you and downsize your dreams and downgrade your hopes and downplay your abilities because they are threatened? So we want to make sure that we are with relationships that we don't lose momentum. Here's the challenge. You can only sin, ascend, which means to move up, when you have great win. Great win is your relationships. Great win is when you have people who are blowing inspiration in your life, inspiration in your heart. Those are people who are motivating you and inspiring you. They're infusing you with positivity. So if you're losing momentum, momentum means to move, and you're moving, I want you to reconsider that relationship. Listen, you are a person. You're not a parked car. And if you're in a relationship and you are functioning as a parked car, it's time to leave. Or if you are in a relationship and you're in a passenger seat, that you're no longer driving your life to fulfillment, driving your life to abundance, driving your life to your highest version of yourself, get out the car. So I want you to think about, are you losing momentum? So two things. One is, are you losing morale, that you're starting to feel badly about who you are and how you look and how you feel and you starting to erode your self-esteem. Two is, are you losing momentum, meaning that are you starting to stall or get stuck in your life because you're using all your energy to make someone else happy. And remember, it doesn't matter if they're happy. If you're not happy, there's no happiness, right? The third thing is, if you're losing meaning. When we are thinking about our lives, we only create, and we are only creative when we care about something, right? Remember, you care, you create. If you're in a relationship where someone is draining the life out of you, that you no longer care about yourself, no longer care about your appearance, no longer care about your goals, no longer care about your dreams, that's a bad relationship. You cannot stay in any place where you start disintegrating and diminishing who you are. And many times we stay in relationships where we start to diminish and disintegrate right in the relationship, and we stay there because we have lost our morale to the point that we feel that nobody else wants us. Let me tell you, somebody wants you. And if the person is not treating you well, you need to leave. If the person, your job is not allowing you to grow, allowing you to expand, allowing you to have opportunities, you need to go. That's not the only job in the world. We don't have to be loyal to a job. Believe me, they ain't going to be loyal to you. They will cut you at any time they have to downsize. So it's so important to ask yourself, is this relationship breathing energy into me? Am I losing my perspective on life? Am I losing my mindset? Am I, as this thing, sometimes you used to be global, now you're ghetto. So why? Because if you, sometimes relationships reduce you, and they start to minimize you, and they start to make you feel as if you are not enough. So I want you to think about, are you losing your meaning? You losing perspective. You losing your viewpoint of being positive. I want you to think about this. When you lose your meaning, you lose your why. Your why. When you lose your why, you lose your way. When you lose your way, you lose your will. That's your resilience, your tenacity. And when you lose your will, you don't win. So I want to say that again. When you lose your why, your purpose, your reason for doing something, you lose your way. And when you lose your way, you lose your will. And when you lose your way, you don't win. So I want you to think about your life. Hey, Veronica and Priscilla, I want you to think about your life and ask yourself, have you lost meaning? Has your life just diminished to just everyday existence, that there's nothing, it's just ordinary, that is just mundane, that is just boring, because you're trying to fit your big personality into a very small relationship, trying to fit your big goals into a very small love relationship. You're trying to fit your big genius into a little job. Some jobs, some people are too small for you. If you are a gallon, you can't be in a pint-sized relationship. And some of us are in pint-sized relationships because we're dealing with people who have small mentalities, small mindsets, small dreams, and because they have limited self-esteem, they need to squash you, because the only way they feel good about themselves if they make you smaller. So I want you to make sure that you think about that. Now, why is this all important? When you lose morale, your self-confidence, you lose momentum, you stop moving forward, you get off track in your life, you lose meaning, you lose perspective, guess what? It's going to affect your money. You cannot generate money when you don't feel good about yourself. You cannot take risks that you need to take when you don't feel good about yourself. You cannot network and connect with people when you feel less than. Every time a person starts to pick you apart and pick you apart and pick you apart and pick you apart, just think, they're picking you apart in money, they're putting holes in you, and the money is going outside of the holes. So it's so important to remember that you cannot, if you have big goals, you can't be with a small-minded person. If you have massive dreams, you can't be with a person that has a myopic mindset. Just think. If you have to have big success, you can't be with people who have small standards. And so we have to think about who we're hanging with, because all connections are not good connections. Some connections are misconnections, and they trap you. They trivialize you. They cripple you. They confuse you. And if you stay in it, you will only be 25 to 30% of who you were meant to be. You will not be able to self-actualize in a way that you feel proud of yourself. I cannot tell you, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my early 40s, that I kept reducing myself trying to fit into people's packages. Because people will say, oh, SharRon, you're already a corporate leader. Why are you going into the ministry? Oh, SharRon, you don't need to write a book. Oh, SharRon, you don't need to be a coaching, a life strategist. And they kept pushing me down, and I allowed it to. Right? I allowed people to do that. Why? Because I did not enforce my boundaries. And that's what happens when you don't enforce your boundaries. You lose momentum. You lose your morale. You lose meaning. You remember, you have to have guardrails in your life. So I want you to think about it. I want you to think about the people in your life, because the people, the ones who are the closest to you are the ones who can do the most damage, or they can do the most development. The ones who's closest to you can do the most, give you the most help, but they also can do the most harm. But they can only do help if they are secure in who they are. The most reckless thing you can do, if you're a person of purpose, is to be around insecure people. It is dangerous to be around people who are emotionally needy, emotionally greedy. It's dangerous to be around people who are insecure, people who are desperate. Desperation results in violation, and people will violate your boundaries when they're desperate. So I hope that you would join me. We're going to talk about this more tomorrow. Hey, Tanya and Trina, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, because so many of us are in relationships, in connections, at work, at our jobs, in our families. Some of us are sleeping with the enemy right now. And we are demoting and downsizing who we are because we're trying to go along to get along. I think it's so important to remember, if you keep trying to fit in, you will fade out. You will fade out on your genius, on who you were designed to be. Absolutely, your vibe attracts your tribe. Avis, that is so true. And here's the problem. We have to make sure we're strong, because you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. And so if you're not a strong person, if you're messy, if you're not a person of conscience, if you're not a person who has the courage to follow your own conscience and not the crowd, guess what? You're going to attract weak-minded people. I believe when we have a choice, we could be warriors, winners, or wimps and whiners. Warriors and winners are wimps and whiners. We get to make the choice. But we make the choice because we are affected and infected by the people who are around us. There's no such thing as saying nobody's affects you. That's a lie. We are affected by someone's energy. We are affected by someone's ethos. We are affected by someone's vibe. We are affected. I mean, synergy is energy. We are affected. Even if we don't understand we're affected, our body knows when something doesn't feel good. Our spirit knows that something doesn't feel good. And so it's reckless. It's not good self-care when you stay in situations that demean you, that minimize you, that demonize you, that degrades you, that devalues you, that disrupts you, that disturbs you, that in any way diminishes who you are. You are a queen, you are a king, you're royalty. And if someone cannot honor the privilege of having access to you, then you need to close the gate, because access has privileges. And if people cannot respond to you and celebrate you for the genius, for the godly person that you are, I think we need to take a look. Remember, you're human and divine. And if we have people in our lives who impact, affect, threaten is really the right word, threaten our morale, that really affects our momentum, or affects our meaning, that affects our money, that guess what? They're going to affect your mind. And your mind should be off limits. Your mind is God's and yours. So I hope you will join me. Hey, Karen, I hope you will join me tomorrow. It's a 90-minute class. It's online. Not only do we talk about relationships, we break off in groups to help us identify who's in our life. There are 4 levels of friendships. And many times we're stuck at level 1 and level 2 because level 3 requires skills. Level 4 requires vulnerability. And so sometimes we don't know how to do that because some of us have been hurt so badly. And we have started normalizing allowing pathology in our lives. Because remember, crazy can only be in your life if you allow it. But some of us don't have crazy in our lives. We have allowed crazy to be in the car, and crazy is driving our life off a cliff. So I hope you can join me. It's tomorrow. The link is in here. I hope you can join me. It's time for us to level up. But if we're going to level up, we can't level up. Elevation requires examination. Socrates said this: an unexamined life is not worth living. And I want to say an unexamined relationship is not worth giving, is not worth being a part of it, is not worth in any way engaging in it. So let's examine our connections. And if the connections are fatal and not fruitful, because our connection should be fruitful, our connection should produce something, our connection should help us be better, our connection should help us contribute to the world, then they're fatal. Remember, fruitful and fatal. Some of us are in fatal relationships because that has been our norm. And guess what? You have the power of choice. You have the power of choice because it's your life. Yes, you don't have to live by default. You can live by design. And then one of the ways you live by design is that you construct and you develop your relationships. It's time to level up, right? And level up means first, do some examination. No elevation without examination. Because if not, the worst thing you want to do is have energy without strategy. Right? You need to have a strategy. Strategy first. Understand where you are, have a strategy, and then be intentional about who you share space with and share energy with, because it's all about being able to be your best self. Because when you're your best self, you can collaborate with people in a way that where there's amplification, multiplication, market domination, but it all starts based on good unification. And unification only happens with good connections. Yes? So I hope to see you. Thanks for joining me, Imani. And I hope to see some of you tomorrow. Again, don't lose your morale. Don't lose your momentum. Don't lose your meaning. Don't lose your money. Don't lose your mind. Nobody's worth it, because the best is yet to come. God bless you. See you tomorrow. Hope to see you tomorrow. Sign up for the class. Blessings. Bye.